Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. Before you begin, this is Monday, May 17, 2021, mixed bag at Belmont Village Story Swap. Renu.
Thank you, Linda. Now, the story I'm going to share with you today, I don't really know the origin. I heard another storyteller sharing the story, and since she didn't tell me the source either, I'm just going to tell it to you. So, once upon a time, there was a young lad who worked for a brewer. The brewery made the finest ale in town. Now, one day, the young lad decided he wanted to go out and seek his fortune. So he said to the brewery owner, "Sir, I would like to go out and seek my fortune." And the owner looked at him and said, "Yes, my lad, it's high time. We went out and saw the world." The boy was very happy to hear this. But the owner said, "But I don't have money to pay you as wages. Instead, I can give you one keg of my finest ale. Would that do?" The boy was only too happy to agree. And so he picked up that heavy keg of ale, placed it on his shoulder. He was strong, young, and eager to go. And so he set off, carrying that heavy keg of ale. At first, he walked with long strides, very confident that he could walk for many a mile. But as he walked, the weight of the keg seemed heavier and heavier. And finally, he stopped. He sat down by the roadside, placed the keg below. He lifted it and put it down. And as he sat there, he wished, "How I wish someone would come along to share some ale with me and lessen my load." And he sat there and watched and looked and wondered whether someone would come by. And finally, he saw from a distance someone was coming by. And he waited. And then he saw this man, with a long white beard, very nicely dressed. And then he asked him. The man stopped by and said, "What are you doing here, young boy?" "I'm waiting here for someone to come and share this ale with me," said the boy. "I would like some," said the man. The boy looked at him and said, "Who are you and where are you from?" And the man replied, "I am God and I come from heaven." And the boy said, "You are God? You're not a fair person. You make the rich richer and the poor poorer. I will not share my ale with you." And he lifted up that heavy keg with a great lot of difficulty, placed it on his shoulder, and continued to walk. And once again, he was very tired. He picked up that keg from his shoulder, placed it down, and sat down, and heaved a big sigh of relief to get that load off his shoulder. And once again, he waited. And soon enough, another man came by. And this man, too, had the same beard, dressed very neatly. And he said, "What are you doing here, my lad?" And the boy replied, "I'm waiting here, hoping for somebody to come by to share this ale with me." The man said, "Please, I would love to share some of your ale." The boy said, "Who are you and where do you come from?" The man replied, "I am the devil and I come from hell." "What? You are the devil? Why would I want to share my ale with you? Everybody is scared of you. You are dangerous. I'm not going to share my ale with you." And once again, with great difficulty, he picked up that keg, placed it on his shoulder, and continued to walk. Now, he couldn't walk much further. So he moved that keg off his shoulder, placed it on the ground, and sat down. Now he was so tired and he wondered what he was going to do. And when he looked, he saw a woman coming by this time. And she too stopped and she said, "My lad, what are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm just waiting for someone to come and share this ale with me and perhaps have a conversation. I'm so tired." And the woman said, "Could you share some with me? My throat is parched. I've been working the whole night and day." And the boy said, "Who are you? And where do you come from?" "I am death, and I'm everywhere," she said. "You are death? I will share my ale with you. You are fair. You take away the wealthy, you take away the poor, you take away the sick, you take away the healthy, you take away the young, you take away the old. You do not discriminate. I like you. Sit down," he said. And so the woman sat down next to him and they drank ale all through the night. They drank and they spoke and they talked and shared many stories. And in the morning, Death said, "It's time for me to go. But you have been very kind to me. So I am going to grant you a boon. Your keg of ale will never get empty. And what's more, you will be able to save lives. All you need to do is to give a small glass of ale to the person who's lying on the deathbed. But remember one thing: if you come into the room and see me sitting at the head of the bed, that soul is mine. But if you see me sitting at the foot of the bed, then you may save that person." The boy agreed and Death left. The boy, once again, now he was refreshed, picked up that keg of ale and he continued to walk. And soon he reached a village. And as he was looking for somewhere to rest, he saw a crowd of people standing outside a hut, wailing away, "Oh my God, oh no." And so he went across to them and said, "What's the matter?" And they said, "The chief's wife is dying. She just had a baby. What are we going to do?" And so the boy walked inside and he was happy at what he saw. Death was sitting at the foot of the bed. And so he knew that he could save this woman's life. And he said, "I can save her life." And he took a small glass of ale and fed it to the woman. And as soon as she had drunk, she sat up and said, "Give me my baby." Everybody was so happy. The chief was thrilled beyond words and he gave the boy a few gold coins. And so the story went on. The boy traveled. He saved many, many lives, but he always remembered what Death had told him. Whenever he entered a house and he saw Death sitting at the head of the bed, he always walked away saying, "I'm sorry, I cannot save this person." And so he made more and more money. He built a big house. He lived a good life. He got married. He had children. He had almost decided to give it up altogether when one day he got summons from the king. So he went across the palace. And the king met him and said, "My dear man, I heard so much about you. You can save lives. My little girl, my only child, is dying. Do you think you can save her life?" The man said, "Maybe. I need to see her first." And so he was led to the princess's bedchamber. And when he entered, what do you think he saw? Death was sitting at the head of the bed. And he thought, "Oh no," because his heart smote with pity. She was such a young child, the king's only daughter. He wanted to save her life, but he remembered what Death had told him. What was he to do? But when he looked, Death was fast asleep. And that's when an idea struck him. He called the guards and said, "Lift the bed and turn it around." And so very quietly, he turned the bed around. So now Death was sitting at the foot of the bed. And the young man gave the young princess some ale. And she woke up healthy as ever. Now Death, at that very instant, woke up and she was furious. Now the only person who could see Death was the man. And so Death told him, "Come out." And so he walked out with Death, knowing fully well what penalty he would have to pay. And Death said, "You gave that girl life and you knew her soul was mine. Now you must pay with your debt. I'm going to take away your soul. Man said, please take me away. And Death looked at him and said, I'm wondering, it's not really your time to die. In fact, you saved that little girl's life and you're willing to give your life instead. I shall let you go. But you can no longer save lives. And your keg of ale will be empty now. And Death went away. The end. Thank you.
Thank you, Renu. For my edification, are you able to repeat what sounded like egg?
Sorry?
Can you I could hear your story, but there were two important words I missed. The noun for the burden upon his shoulder that he hoisted,
Okay.
and the
Okay.
contents of the vessel that had what sounded like an egg.
Okay.
Egg.
The vessel was a keg, KEG, and what was contained therein was ale, ALE. I'll write it down.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
I don't know what to say. Talk about giving and taking. Talk about fair and everything else. So
Actually,
Asaf,
actually, sorry for interrupting, but the story was very different, and I didn't like the ending much. So what happens is that the man, he's still young when he goes to the king's palace, and he sees this beautiful young princess, and he wants to marry her. And when he sees Death sitting next to the head of the bed, he wants to cheat her. So he tells the guards to change the bed around, and then finally he saves the princess's life. And the king is so happy. He says, "I'm going to give you." He says, "What can I give you?" And he says, "I want your daughter's hand in marriage." And then Death wakes up and she says, "You have broken your promise." And she puts him into a dungeon. And then he says, dying man's wish is that he should say his last prayer. And so she says, okay. But every day he just recites one line or one word of the prayer and falls asleep. So finally, what she does is she writes down the entire prayer on the wall. And before he just wakes up and starts reading the entire thing. And as soon as he says amen, his soul is gone. So I didn't like that part of the story much because I feel it's always about a man and seeing a beautiful princess and wanting to marry her. He doesn't even know what kind of person she is, and he doesn't even know whether she wants to marry him. So I'm totally against these kind of stories. So I said, okay, let me change it to he's married, he's got children, and now he wants to save a little girl, which I think is far more nicer thing to do. So I changed the story around quite a bit, and that was my version of the story. So thank you.
I am glad. I am glad to hear that, and you can tell I'm voting for yours. It's more inclusive. So
Linda, one more thing I want to ask you: was I going too fast? Was my
in the beginning, you were going a little too fast. My mind said go slower. I've never employed the Zoom tool called slower, but I thought
okay?
maybe that. But I didn't have to. I was able to pick it up except for what I asked about.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see how do So I'm having trouble. I think maybe Renu is only spotlighted on my screen because when I go to unspotlight her, it's not an option. So is everybody else not seeing any spotlight?
I kind of like it not spotlighted because I get to watch everybody
Vicky,
else.
oh, hi Vicky, I can hear you now.
Oh, I was just saying I kind of like no spotlight because I can watch everybody.
Oh, I vote with that too. I mean,
You can choose. Anyone can choose whether they want to see everyone or one person. You just have to go to gallery view.
Well, Asaf, you're right, but I think separate and apart from what Asaf just said about the personal choice, I think as host, I can spotlight and unspotlight, regardless of personal choice. Okay, so I'm still confused about
Is pin, this is Marion, is
Hi,
pin video what the host chooses to make it highlighted for the recording purpose? Who knows the answer
Well,
to that?
Marion, is the vocabulary pin video synonymous with spotlight video?
They're a little different and it
They're
has to
different.
do,
Yeah, and so pin is really just applicable to what I'm calling personal choice. Am I correct?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Linda.
Yes,
Pin is
okay.
each one of the participants for ourselves and who we want to see. Spotlight is the host, is something the host does to
Yeah.
show it to everyone.
I have a hard time taking in new info, so I like it better when you can just treat me like the empress and say I'm yes or I'm right or I'm wrong.
Linda, what you need to do is when you want to spotlight the teller, if they want to be spotlighted, is you can choose on your screen spotlight. And because
Yes.
you're the host, unless you change it, that person will continue to be spotlight. It's only when you change to speaker, you change to gallery view, then it will change for all of us.
Thank you.
Otherwise, the person who's speaking will be on spotlight. Currently,
Thank
you're
you.
on spotlight because I think you put it on gallery.
Thank you. But Renu, you're on my screen right now spotlighted.
Okay.
Is that because you did that on purpose or is that vestiges from your story?
No, no.
Well,
Yeah, now I'm spotlighted. I can see myself.
oh my gosh, Bobby Kincaid's been waiting. I hope not long.
Now I can see myself, Linda. I'm spotlighted. That's because I think you've pinged me.
Well, no, 5 seconds ago I did spotlight you, and now I canceled you, but you're still spotlighted. So maybe you pinned yourself.
Okay. How do I get that off? Hi, Bobby, I can hear you. Yeah, I gotta get this thing off behind me.
Oh, is it for a different event?
No, I thought
Welcome.
it would be fun, but it's too over.
Oh, I
Over.
like it. But Bobby, I hope I didn't keep you in the waiting room too long, did I?
No, no.
Oh, good.
I-
Okay.
Hello, Jean. Where did she go? She's
So I've gone back to gallery view. That's going to be my default. Asaf, I've not asked you if you want to tell. I know Vicky wants to tell tonight, and for Bobby's edification, Beverly told already. We got to hear a Titanic story. And we got to hear about God and devil and death from Renu, and Jean Ellison is going to tell. And I didn't ask Melissa Ho. And Marianne Ferranti wants to tell. And
mine's very optional.
Asaf might, I haven't asked, and our new person from Southern California in Huntington Beach, Sema, is a new teller or wants to become a teller, and I'm very excited to have her here. I would like to ask Sema how she heard about Mixed Bag and Storytelling Association of California. Do you remember?
Yes. Are you asking me, Miss Linda? I was searching for storytelling education, maybe for 2-3 months, because I'm already having classes from Turkey about this. And also I wanted to take in English. My English isn't so good, but I'm trying to improve. So I found.
I'm so far very impressed with your English. When I went to Turkey, I learned merhaba. Oh, and I could count. Bir, iki. I remember is ocho. No, never mind. We won't go there. Thank you for your English so far. Would you like to tell tonight?
No.
Okay,
Not.
no problem. Asaf, do you know if you want to tell tonight?
I'm kind of wondering, I mean, I'm very distracted with all the news these days. So, I mean, I guess there's one story I could tell that it's a pretty well-known Jewish story, and I've told it a bunch of times, and it might be one that everybody already knows. I don't know.
would like to hear from you.
Yeah. I need another couple minutes though, because something's making some noise in the kitchen, and I'll have to let it finish first.
I'll do that. Can you
Okay.
wait for me to call on Vicky or someone else who's ready?
Yeah, I have someone else tell first.
Oh, Bobby Kincaid wants back in. Oh, goody. We can't be losing our tellers. So Vicky, wait, are you by chance ready to go now, or would you rather wait? Okay, good. May I spotlight you?
Sure. Hi there. I'd like to tell a story about a town that nobody's ever heard of, right in the middle of America, smack in the middle of America. In this town, which was very small, had very few people in it, everybody was productive and happy and worked every day. But at night, there was one character in town who changed things. His name was Mr. Shadow. And he would creep along like a black mist down the road, up the walls like fingers of shadows, into chimneys, under windows, and he would snap out lights. And he would pull down all the brightness in the room until people were in almost entire darkness. And the people actually kind of liked this at night. So he'd go back to his hovel in town, and he'd throw his cloak out, and the cloak would fly over the houses like a flock of black birds and would settle again over the rooftops. And as it did so, it sucked up all the energy, and all the devices powered down, and the houses got entirely quiet. And that's when people realized it was a good time to fold up the newspaper, go feed the cat one more time, take the dog out to pee, put the cage cover over the parrot, make sure the kids are tucked in bed, and yawn and shuffle off to bed to fall into that darkness and an embrace of peace and quiet and joy that comes from a quiet sort of oblivion. But Mr. Shadow isn't finished. Every night, he would then open his coat, and all the lights that he stole would come flying out and swirling like a cosmos in chaos. And they would swirl over the houses and again drop into chimneys and under windows and through vents. And they would swirl over the people and turn into brilliant twinkling dreams that they would have at night. Well, this worked out really well for everybody. They were happy. This was good. But then one day, a man came into town on his way to a really big city, an important city somewhere. And he stayed at the hotel in town. And as he was paying for his room, the hotel clerk thought, you know, it's only wise I should tell you, we have this guy named Mr. Shadow, and at night, this is what happens. And by the morning, the dawn comes up and everything's good and we're happy. Well, this guy didn't understand that. He didn't come from this town. He didn't come from this area. And he was really unhappy. You mean to tell me you brain dead bumpkins let this man tell you when to be quiet? What's wrong with you people? You're idiots. Well, the hotel clerk shuffled back one foot, back the other foot, and tried to think of a good answer because as far as he was concerned, this is normal, you know, and in front of him is this man with these colorful clothes that were just crawling with neon colors, and his face was florid and his hair was sticking up. And he wanted to know what was wrong with these people. They're stupid losers. Oh, well, man, you don't have to be like that. He said, "What? Here's your key." And the traveling man went up to his bed. And sure enough, that night, Mr. Shadow did what Mr. Shadow does every night, and the darkness fell and the lights turned out. And sure enough, he couldn't text anybody and he couldn't get online and he couldn't do anything because everything was powered down and there was nothing for him to do but sit in the darkness and wait for the morning, which is what he did. The next morning he left, not without a few terse words about only losers live here and bunch of brain dead bumpkins, bunch of inbred idiots, and everything else he could think of fell out of his mouth. And the hotel clerk was a little annoyed, but the more he thought about it, he thought, well, maybe he's right. So he went to the hotel owner and he said, you know, this guy was here and he was saying, you know, that we're kind of bumpkins because we let, you know, Mr. Shadow tell us when to chill out, and we have darkness, you know, and he thought that was stupid. Well, the hotel owner said, well, he's an idiot. This is a fine town and he's an idiot. Get out of here and close the door on the way out. And the more he sat there, the more he thought maybe he ought to ask his wife. So as she was bustling out the door to go to the grocery store, he said, Ethel, do you think we look stupid because we have Mr. Shadow and he turns out all the lights and all that kind of stuff? Do you think we look stupid? Do you think we look like we're backward? And his wife said, what made you ask that? What a dumb question. I like Mr. Shadow. What a stupid question. Now, why would you do that? And off she went to the grocery store. But as she's standing at the grocery store with a couple of bright red apples and her milk and her bread, and the lovely clerk is adding it all up, she says, you know, I just got to ask you, Suzanne, do you think we look kind of backward because we don't, you know, because we go to bed at night? Do you think that's kind of backward and Mr. Shadow is the problem? And what do you think about that? Suzanne said, well, that's stupid. We're fine. We're happy. What's the problem? And she went on with her job. The policeman behind her said, as he was paying for his stuff, well, I think that's ridiculous too. We have a fine town and everybody's happy and it's a good thing. And as he went off down to the police station, he thought about it and thought about it. And then he went into the police commissioner's office and said, you know, it isn't me. I'm just asking. Do you think other people don't come to our town because we're bumpkins, illiterate inbreds, because of Mr. Shadow? I'm just asking. I think this might be a problem here. I mean, it's not me. I'm just saying other people are talking and this could happen. And the police commissioner said, of all the lame brain ideas I've ever heard, do you not have work to do, real work to do? Maybe you should go check it out. See if there is something you can do. Don't let the door hit your butt on the way out. But then he thought about it. So he called up the mayor and he said, listen, we have to talk about Mr. Shadow. There's news stories going on out there that we're idiots, that we look stupid. We look like losers. I think we need to talk. So the mayor came over and the police commissioner and the mayor talked. And the more they talked, the more worried they got. And the more worried they got, the more they decided maybe we need to apprehend this Mr. Shadow and put him somewhere where we can see what he's doing so that we don't look like idiots. So 2 officers toddled downtown and they followed the shadows and they followed the dankness and the darkness and the deepness of the town, through alleys, back in behind rooms, into dark, dark spaces. And there was Mr. Shadow, just as dark as cinders with 2 brilliant tensor light eyes. So they threw a bag over him and they grabbed him and they took him into jail and they threw him in the jail cell. And there he was, dignified, tall, thin, and silent. Mr. Shadow stood in the jail cell. Well, took 2 seconds for the mayor to go out to the town square and announce, guess what I did? Okay, guess what I did? I made it so that you don't have to go to bed at night. Okay, you can do anything you want at night. You can just keep on going and keep on going all night. The people went, wow. And they partied just like little kids let out of school. And they danced and they partied, and all night they were just having a good time. And then the next day, of course, they were kind of tired, but they went to work, elbowing each other. Did you see that? We partied. Did you know what we did? We really partied. And they had such a good time. And then night came. They were kind of tired, but the lights wouldn't go out. And the computers wouldn't stop spinning. And voices would come out of the television, even though they tried to turn it off. And the texts would come in, and all night, the lights kept going. The computers kept spinning, and they didn't get a wink of sleep. So the next morning they started to talk to each other, and the more they talked, the more they grumbled. And the more they grumbled, the more they hatched an idea. And they came back to the mayor with pitchfork and torch and said, "You're an idiot. Look what you did to us. You ruined our town. We're very unhappy with you." And the mayor was, "Oh, you know, it was that police commissioner. He did this because he doesn't like any of you. I love you. He did this. I'm going to go talk to him. This is wrong." So off he goes to the jail. And he collars the police commissioner and he says, "You know what you are? You're an idiot. You know what you almost did to this town? I'll tell you what you almost did because you're an idiot." And the two of them started arguing back and forth. Well, one of the police officers got up and stretched and thought, this isn't going to work. So he wended his way back to the cell where Mr. Shadow was. And he opened up the door, but there was no Mr. Shadow. There was a quiet drip from the moss. There was a gathering gloom at the bottom and the scurry of rat. There were damp spider webs hanging over newts and all kinds of damp, dark creatures, but there was no Mr. Shadow. So he stepped away from the cell, and slowly, like molasses pouring down steps, came a black, dark, soft, silent presence that reconfigured itself as almost a tall, thin stick of a being with two bright eyes right in front of the police commissioner and the mayor, who were involved in their own very dark conversations, saying terrible things to each other. It got so dark that it made Mr. Shadow ill. So he crept out. And sure enough, that night, there goes Mr. Shadow, sweeping and slithering and coming up the walls like shadows on ceilings and walls and in the windows and under the curtains and in the chimneys and down. And the light slowly twinked out and dimmed. And people started to trust the darkness again. And they said, you know, how nice. It would be nice to just be quiet. And sure enough, the covers went over the parrot cages, and the kitties got fed, and the dogs went out for a final pee, and the kids were all in bed, and they'd start to slough off into their bedrooms, which by this time were totally dark, and they'd fall back into the blackness and the silence and the peace and a caress of compassion and warmth. And Mr. Shadow was slowly working his way back, and he threw his cloak over the entire town, and every single roof was drenched in darkness, and all the electricity was sucked up, and there was not a text to be heard. Then he listened and listened, and when it was quiet, he opened his coat, and all the captive lights that he had taken spun out and swirled, large and vibrating, tiny little stars, all kinds of lights, and they went directly to the houses and swirled over the people and drifted into their minds and formed twinkling paths for beautiful dreams to follow. And the next morning, the people woke up, and they felt fabulous, and they were alive. And they felt like they had had the best night's sleep they had had in weeks. And that was true for the entire town, except maybe the mayor and the police commissioner. And as far as I know, they're still arguing. The end.
Thank you, Vicky. I go with Mr. Shadow. You just brought back all of the darkness from before electricity in a contemporary way. Go, Vicky. The title again and the source?
It's called Mr. Shadow, and I wrote it. It's one of my stories.
Oh, I'm so glad you had it at Mixed Bag.
Thank you.
You remind me to ask people if they would not mind telling me they want or want not to be recorded, because I'm glad we have that on tape. I hope that's okay with you. I've not been asking individually. Is it okay with everybody that you tell me you do not? I hope so. I'll hear if it's not. Oh my. Before we leave Mr. Shadow, I just want to say there's such a parallel with pandemic. Did you by chance write it during pandemic? Did you by chance change your hours, as some of us, speaking for myself, only have?
No, actually, I wrote it from working in front of a computer screen all day long and then coming home to texts. And I thought we need to learn how to trust the darkness, the stuff we don't know, to fall back into something we don't know and trust again, instead of controlling everything with our fingers and our minds. So
Thank you, Vicky. Asaf, are you by chance able to tell your story now?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Very good.
So without further ado, should I wait for someone or something? Oh,
You're
cool. I'm
good. Thank you
spotlighted.
for asking, but I've got you spotlighted and we're ready.
Okay. This is a story that I would hear when I was growing up in Israel. They used to tell us the story, in kindergarten. So I've heard it a few times, but this particular version that they used to tell us, I haven't heard it quite this way in other places. So maybe if people know this story, maybe it'll be a little different. It begins with the temple. It begins with the great temple of the Jews in Jerusalem thousands of years ago, where people would come and they would pray and they would visit and they would bring food and gifts, and people would load up their bulls and decorate their horns and pack the carts full of the harvest and go to the temple, and it was the center of the Jewish world. But before the temple was there, it was really just a hill, and on the hill was nothing but wheat, just wheat covering the hill from one end to the other. And there were two brothers who would farm this hill. They lived on either side of it. One brother was a bit older, the other a bit younger. One brother had a family, a wife and 4 children. The other brother, he lived alone. And it was right around this time of year. I don't know if anyone's following the Jewish calendar, but there's a holiday that happens right now. It's called Shavuot, the Festival of Weeks. This is when the wheat is harvested. This is that time of year. And so this would be a story for that time of year. And just as this holiday was around the corner and the farmers were beginning to cut their wheat, reap the harvest, fill up their barns, and their barns were slowly filling with piles and bales of wheat, the older brother was sitting one of those nights after a long day's harvest around his table, looking at his wife, looking at his children. They were all eating, and he was thinking to himself, I have so much. I have a wife to help me. I have 4 sons. I have 4 children to help me. And I'm so happy. And I keep thinking, my brother, he lives on the other end of the hill. He's alone. He's got no one to comfort him. He has no one to help him. He has to do all the work himself. And I wonder if it wouldn't be so nice if just this holiday he found more wheat in his barn than he was expecting. Wouldn't that be just a cheerful miracle, just a wonderful little thing for him to suddenly have more wheat than he expected? And so that night, this older brother, he snuck into his own barn in the middle of the night after his whole family had gone to sleep. And he collected a few bales of hay. He tucked them all under his arm. He closed up his barn and he started making his way up the hill and down the other side. And he snuck over to his brother's barn. He opened the door. He put the bales of hay, tucked them in right along with everything else so no one would know. He closed the door and he snuck back home and went to sleep. Little did he know that the very same evening, his younger brother had been sitting at home after a long day's work and thinking to himself, I'm on my own. I only have to feed one mouth. I don't have to help a wife. I don't have to help 4 children. things are just so simple, so easy for me. And my brother, he has to take care of his entire family. Wouldn't it be nice if just for this holiday, my brother would have a little bit more wheat than he was expecting? Wouldn't it be just really nice if my brother would find a little bit more wheat in his barn? And so he woke up in the middle of the night. Of course, he didn't have to sneak too much because there was nobody else there. And he just tucked some wheat under his arm. And he made his way up the hill, and he came back down the other side and snuck into his brother's barn, opened the door, tucked it all in there so no one would notice, closed the door, and made his way back home. Lo and behold, the next morning, both brothers woke up, opened the doors to their barn, and found the exact same amount of wheat that had been there the night before, which was really pretty strange, because each one of them remembered taking wheat out, packing a good deal of it under their arm and taking it out. And here we are, the exact same amount of wheat that was there the night before. And so the older brother said to himself, well, I should just take more. Maybe it was just not enough, and I'm just not even noticing the difference. And so that night he snuck out. He took a lot of wheat in this hand, and he took a lot of wheat in this hand. He barely managed to close the door behind him. He snuck up the hill. He took the wheat into his brother's barn. He tucked it in there and made it look innocent. And he went back to sleep. And of course, his younger brother saw the same thing, the same amount of wheat, came to the exact same conclusion. Maybe I should just take more. And he packed a whole bunch of wheat on this side, a whole bunch of wheat on this side. He made his way up the hill. He made his way back down the other side. He tucked it in his brother's barn so no one would notice. And he snuck away. The next morning they woke up and they see the exact same amount of wheat in the barn, and they have no idea how that is. And the older brother thought to himself, okay, I'm just going to take as much wheat as I possibly can. And he woke up in the middle of the night and gathered everything he could into this arm. He gathered everything he could into this arm. He tucked wheat into his belt. He tucked wheat into his shirt. He tucked wheat under his neck and between his shoulders, and he put it everywhere he could. And he became a mountain of wheat with two legs, walking up the hill and making his way over to his brother's barn on a full moon night just before the holiday. And as he came toward the top of the hill, he saw a very curious sight. A mountain of wheat walking in his direction with two legs. And as he came closer, he realized this was his brother. And his brother saw him, and he saw his brother, and they finally realized what had been happening this entire last 3 nights. And each one of them dropped the wheat, and they ran to each other and hugged. And God was looking down at them that night, and God said, that spot where those two brothers are hugging, that is where I want them to build my temple. So
That spot. Wow. Oh my God. Again, the title.
I don't know.
Oh.
Old Jewish folktale. I don't know. For all I know, it could be Kurdish, but I've heard it so far only in Jewish circles so far. So, yeah.
Really visual for me, the image. And then to have the mirror image of the image. Oh my gosh. And then to have that, I mean, it ties up in such a comforting way that I'm just delighted that you told it, and that this is that holiday, and that you put them together.
Thanks for making me tell. I was really wondering whether to. I'm quite overwhelmed right now.
Well, yeah. When I think about the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
But I've not been following all the news. Only tonight did I find out that in India, it's not just rising COVID numbers, but there was a natural event, like a tornado, that Beverly, who had to leave. And and I think Renu said that we didn't ask Renu about the tornado. And I'm not sure if she's, so I'm going to unspotlight
Yes,
you.
the cyclone hit the west coast of India and a lot of people died. A cyclone hit the west coast of India. That's on the other side from where I live. I live on the east coast. So it hit states like Kerala, and then moved across to Karnataka, and then moved further north up to Maharashtra, and then now it's hitting Gujarat, which is right on top. So this is like if India is like this, I'm here and they are on the other side. So the entire cyclone has only hit those areas, and I think a lot of damage. Quite a few people have died. My family who lives in Kerala, they're all fine because they're not really very close to the coast. But yeah, I think these calamities are going to keep happening now, Linda. I think nature is finally taking steps towards controlling our our humanity who's always trying to control nature. I think now nature is trying to hit back. I think that's the way I look at it, because I think people have been just destroying, exploiting nature so much. I feel it's high time that nature gives it back to us. So I think this whole COVID and all these natural calamities are not going to just end here. I think I know I'm taking a very negative approach, but as I see the years going by, things are only getting worse. And I think we need to some sort of take a step back now and decide what we want to do to sort of mend our ways and perhaps heal nature, appreciate the things that we have, which we've just been taking for granted. I love everything about nature, and I try my best to educate people. And I have planted lots and lots of trees. I love animals, I love trees, and I keep telling people don't cut down trees, don't hurt animals. But then I'm just maybe one among a few in the country who cares about environment and animals. And so I really don't know what the world is, how the world is going to deal with this. Sometimes I just tell myself everything is just a mirage, an illusion, and perhaps things will get better. Sometimes that's the only way you can sort of calm yourself down. Otherwise, you're constantly frustrated and angry, and there's nothing much you can do about it. So in our Hindu philosophy, we say that everything is happening within just the self. There's nothing external. Everything is only internal. So if you start looking inside yourself and you start telling yourself, what am I doing? And you finally get into that state where you no longer are attached to anything, no material things, no humans, or nothing. That is when you finally find peace and happiness, because everything is within, nothing is without. So I think that kind of spirituality, many people are moving towards now, not only in India, but I think all over the world. And I think that is really, really needed today.
Well,
So
Renu, you're not going to find a disagreement on this screen tonight, or I'm wrong. But the part I'm right about is that you're right about what you're saying. And when it comes from your mouth, I don't know you well, but I know you a lot, and I know your stories. And when I hear facts mixed in with Renu's voice, which is usually facts with cloaked in fiction or in at least story, it's even harder to hear. So if you felt cut off, it's partly because it's your wonderful story voice, and I was having a hard time clapping with it. Could not clap, my hands could not clap for that. But thank you for your voice.
Asaf, what's happening in Israel now? Is
Like
any,
specifically like today or in general?
well, I know President Biden was trying to call for some type of a peace. What's happening? I haven't heard any of the news today or anything.
I mean, without getting into too much detail, it's really just more of the same.
Okay.
It's just people at each other's throats, and no one's seeing an end in sight at this point. Yeah, I mean, since I have the stage for a brief moment, I will say that I'm from there. My whole family is there, and I would say that most of the people who live in Israel, Jews and Arabs alike, get along just fine. And as a matter of fact, we are protesting together against this now. And I've been posting pictures on Facebook of friends of mine out protesting against what's going on. And people are helping each other. And my mother sent me a picture of a guy named Uli, who has a restaurant in Akko, the old city of Haifa, basically. And his restaurant was burned down by rioters, I guess sometime in the last few days. And they asked him, are you angry at the Arabs that burned down your restaurant? And his answer was, there's a lot more Arabs that helped me put the flames out. So there's a lot of good things going on. It's just that I guess those good things just don't sell in mainstream media. And you don't know about them. There's a lot of good going on. I'm doing my best to accentuate the positive. And
Well, Asaf,
yeah.
you're raising the flag for the newsmakers, the news writers, because they've got a lot to cover, and I'm not accusing them, but like you say, they've got a lot to cover, and
they are
what a welcome voice for that.
they are
Thank you.
terrifying biased, what can I say? Or yeah.
Um,
I'm a little overwhelmed right now. Yeah. Anyway.
I haven't asked Melissa about telling. I know Jean wants to tell, and Marion can tell, but she said she's optional. Bobby, I haven't asked you. It's after 8. Can you hear me, Bobby? Do you want to tell tonight? Does Jean?
Tonight here. No, not. Bobby says no. Thank you.
Glad to have you. Melissa, are you hearing me? Are you interested in telling tonight? Tell me again. I don't hear Melissa. Jean, would you like to tell now?
There we go. Well, I'm seeing something right across my face. It's very interesting. The host has spotlighted your video for everyone. Okay. Hi, everyone. I don't think I've ever told this story sitting down. And I'm a fairly physical storyteller, so we'll see how this goes. It's a personal story. It's about a shero in my life, my Nana. Her name was Lyda Joy Stebbins. She grew up on the Bonnie Doon Ranch in Palomares Canyon in California. She took a horse and buggy to Hayward High School. She was widowed when my mother was still in school, so she had to provide for her daughter and herself. She was a nurse by trade, and she also ran the Lancaster Pet Hotel. She took care of other people's animals when they couldn't, on vacation or whatever. She took in geese. There was a monkey, turkey that chased me around like crazy. Always dogs, lots of dogs. There was a kennel at the back of the property, and there were lots and lots of dogs in the kennel. She let me help feed the dogs and help out. She made her own dog food. Well, she bought the kibble, but she made a magnificent stew to put on the kibble. Those dogs were well cared for. I was 6 years old, and I was so happy to be in the presence of my Nana all by myself. My big sister wasn't there. It was just me and my Nana. And I woke up in the morning and I could smell something coming from the kitchen. And she was brewing a big pot of stew with meat and onions and celery. And the smell just filled the kitchen and boiled out into the room. I said, "What are you cooking, Nana?" She said, "Well, it's the dog food." I said, "You want to help?" "Of course." I got up on the stool and I started stirring and feeling very important that she trusted me to stir the food. And then she said, "You know how to feed the dogs in the kennel, don't you?" I said, "Of course. You showed me." She said, "How would you like to do it all by yourself today?" Wow. She wanted me to feed the dogs all by myself. Cool. Got the radio flyer wagon, loaded that pot of stew on the back of that in that radio flyer wagon, and started down the bumpy dirt path back to the back of the property where the kennel was. But she called out to me as I was not quite too far down the lane, down the path, and she said, "Oh, wait, Jean, I forgot to tell you, there's a new dog in number 7. And he's mean. I don't trust him, So what I want you to be sure to do is open the door, put the food in the door, close the door, and then proceed with the rest of the dogs. Okay, you got it? Yeah, sure, Nana. No problem. Of course. Okay. All I could think of as I walked down the path toward the kennel was number 7, number 7, number 7, number 7, number 7. Oh no, number 7, number 7. I was kind of scared. Now it was a long kennel with hotel rooms on either side of the hallway. And they were by number. And there was a chart. Nana was very, very thorough. She made a chart of how many scoops of kibble and how many scoops of this stew each dog got. So I started with hotel room number 1. Now these were pretty nice rooms. There was an inside place with a raised wooden platform bed and a cutout of to get out into an outside run. So each of the dogs had their separate outside runs with tall chain link fence to separate them, but they could visit and see one another and bark all they wanted to because there was nobody around to hear them. So I started with number 1, and so many cups of kibble, so many cups of stew. Da, 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 da. I'm doing great. I go down one aisle and come back the other way, and I skipped by number 7 because I was saving that one for last. And I fed all the other dogs. Then I went back and I walked up to the door of number 7, and there it was, number 7. The dog's name Brutus, 3 cups of kibble and 2 scoops of stew. He must be huge. And I listened at the door, and I said, "Yoo, puppy, I have your dinner. Hello?" There wasn't a breath coming from the inside of that hotel room. Oh. So I opened the door and I put the food down. I looked around. I didn't see Brutus, didn't see him at all. Was he even there? Did he get away? What, oh, what happened? I could have told Nana. And then I heard him. And he was coming in from the outside run, crouched way down low, going, showing me all of his teeth. He stared at me. I had put the food down and shut the door, and I'd moved away looking for him. Well, Brutus was smarter than me that day because he walked around me and stood right by the door. It was my only way out. Kimosabi, I said, like, the Lone Ranger on television. I tried to make friends. I said, "Oh, you're such a nice dog." And "Hey, look, I brought you your breakfast and your dinner. Look. Oh, food. We could be friends." She looked at me like, "Not on your life." Well, I was in a big pickle, and I had to think quick as a 6-year-old could think. I made a run for it. I made myself small enough to go scooting right through that door to the outside run and started climbing up that chain link fence like a little monkey. Faster and faster I went. Brutus was right behind me going, yeah. Nana. I got high enough on the fence. I screamed for my Nana. And Brutus was right down there, just waiting for me to fall or come down or get tired. And he was far enough away that he wasn't going to eat my feet, but he could have. Nana, I yelled and screamed. And it seemed like I'd been on that fence for a very, very long time. And then I saw the top of her head, her gray hair in a braid on top of her head. I could see it above the bushes. And and then I could see her, and she was carrying a big ladder under her arm. Well, she came up to the other side of the fence where I'm clinging for my life. And she said, she put the ladder up, said, okay, Jean, you're going to have to climb up and over. I don't know if that's where I got my fear of heights or not, but it could be. Considering the alternative, I climbed to the top of the fence and down the other side and into the warm embrace of my Nana. Now, it was a blessing that she didn't scold me that day. I said, Nana, you saved my life. You're my hero. I thought I was going to die now. I'm so sorry. She patted me on the head. She said, I didn't hear you screaming. You know, the house is so far away. No, I never heard you. But you know what? I looked at the clock on the wall in the kitchen and I thought, gee, it's sure taking her a long time to feed the dogs. Oh no. I bet she did. She was right. She rescued me that day. I'll never forget it. She's my shiro. My Nana, Lida Joyce Stebbins. Thank you, Nana. And now I'm a Nana. Ha ha. The end.
Wow. Congratulations, Jean. Oh my word. I thought it was going to be the dog. Was it Brutus? I thought she was
Brutus the
hearing the
dog.
barking. I thought she was hearing the barking. I love it. Saved by the bell.
And by
It's-
Nana.
Well, saved by Nana noticing the clock, like the bell.
Yeah.
My word. 6 years old. Really? Only 6?
Uh-huh.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Let's see.
No, did he,
Beverly, I'm glad you're back. You're on mute.
here?
Yeah, welcome back, Beverly. I saw your chat.
Oh, okay. Yes.
All is well in Albany?
Yeah, my house started getting smoke coming into it. Then I realized that somebody outside was burning wood, and so I closed all my windows. So now, you know.
Wow. I'm
It's a
sorry
cold
you had
night
to
here.
I'm sorry you had to miss some stories.
Oh, I didn't realize, I don't think I missed more than maybe one. I was listening, but you know.
I think you missed I think you missed the hill how do I say Asaf Shavat? Shavat? You missed a story about that about two brothers trying to take care of each other.
Oh, I heard him. I was listening while I was
Oh,
trying to.
oh, good.
Yeah, it's just like I might have disappeared from my little square, you know?
Okay.
But,
So where
what happened to the dog Brutus? I mean, did it go home or did it, and you know, I'm just asking about the dog. To Jean.
Brutus lived to tell the tale, I'm sure.
Oh.
Never found out anything more about Brutus. I never saw him again.
Okay, thank you.
good follow-up. Where are we now? Melissa, do you want to tell tonight? I can't remember.
I'm not ready tonight, but I will be next month.
Thank you. I'm sorry I had to ask you again. John, do you know if you want to tell tonight? You can wait if you like. Marion might want to still tell. I haven't told yet. I'm willing to go last or forfeit if need be. Sema is listening. So Marianne, you or John? A hand raise would be good, or if you're undecided, I will choose.
Let's ask John. hear from John first.
Well, I would love to hear from John. I'm not sure. Was that a hand of yes or is that a hand of hi?
Is that, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd like to. There's one I told. I think maybe only Marion might have heard this a few years ago or something. I can't remember when I told it, but it was a anyway. What I have is a family story that I'm goes way back. Sometime in the 19th century. I'm not sure what time frame exactly, but it's a story that kind of been was what I heard when I was very young, and I certainly was hoping it was true, and just because and it's one of those stories that sometimes when you think of all the things that happened over the years that if it wasn't for this or wasn't for that, maybe I wouldn't be here today, and that kind of thing. And just because life can be so fragile sometimes. So anyway, on my mother's side, I had a great great grandfather who was from the Isle of Man. And he was a country doctor. So back in those days, he traveled mostly by horseback, and anyway, one night while he was just home doing pretty much sleeping by this time, he was or getting ready to go to bed. There was a terrible storm out, and he was fine inside, but he could hear it. It was just all kinds of noise, the wind, and rain, and everything else. And he says, "Oh, sure, I'm sure glad I'm in here." Well, anyway, he ended up through finding out through somebody else that came by that somebody in town was needed his services, and so didn't have much communication. But somebody else came by on horseback who was either a neighbor or a family member of the person that needed help. And so back then, their house calls were, his house calls were with up by horseback, and so he got as ready as he could, all dressed up and ready to go out. Got on his horse and headed out to. He knew where to go, but he headed out. But it was just going to be really tough with the rain coming down and everything else. He was the wind, and it was pretty cold too. And so he's galloping along alongside this river that kind of was, there was a little path that was alongside the river that went to the area he needed to go to. And this river kept, it was such a deluge. It kept filling up, and in that at that time, and he still, it was even hard for him to see where to go, but he kept going, and anyway, he was getting close to where he needed to go. And then all of a sudden, lightning was, coming down more intense than before. There was thunder, and lightning was so strong that as he's going along, he gets thrown off the horse and into the river, and and he hits his head on a rock, and then he just he was knocked out from it. So he didn't quite get to his destination, and then anyway, fast forward to the next morning. The storm has gone by. He's he is he has come to. Actually, he last thing he could remember was he hit his head on this rock and went in the river, and then he just couldn't remember anything after that. But he looks around, as the sun is out. He's still soaked from the falling in the river, but he at that time he looks around. He says, "Gosh, I last thing I remember was going in the river, and now I'm up against this tree over here." And he's kind of like propped up against this tree, and he says, "I seem to be fine, but what happened?" And then he looks around and he says, "Well, guess my horse is still here. He hasn't left me. He's right over nearby, and I'm grateful for that. Glad that he's okay, and I'm glad that I'm okay. And I don't feel too hurt, except for, oh gosh, my neck is really hurting." He's rubbing it. He says, God, what is that?" And then he comes to realize, kind of, feels, oh gosh, those are teeth marks from the horse. And the only thing he can kind of conjure up is that the horse grabbed him before he drowned, grabbed him by the neck, and pulled him up and all the way to the base of this tree, and let him sleep it off, and there he was, safe and sound. So sometimes referred to as dogs as man's best friend. Well, that night it was a horse that was my great grandfather's best friend that saved his life, and on the Isle of Man. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, John. I am so glad that you didn't keep that to yourself. Oh my word.
Thank you very much. It
Do
was
you know how many relatives, how old were you when you learned it? How many relatives had heard of it? And what was the name of the horse?
I don't know the name of the horse. I maybe heard it when I was about 8 or 9 years old or something like that. I can't remember, but it's.
Were you shaped by it, that you can remember? Were you shaped?
Maybe I didn't really think about it too much at the time in terms of how, sort of in the grand scheme of things, how sometimes how life can be fragile, and that lots of times, if in our past there could be there could be somebody that dies, and then you're not part of that whole lineage of the family. Maybe or somebody else might be, but as far as you know. And so it's just made me kind of think about that in the bigger scheme of things. But just how wonderful, and I'm hoping it's true. It's a true story, but it was. I think I like to think it is. It's just how animals can really help us out.
John, if you tell it, when you tell that again, I hope you keep in the he missed his destination. I don't know your verb, but when you said destination, of course our minds are going to his ultimate destination, which I thought was on the mark until you got to the end. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Linda. It's nice to tell it. Thank you.
Oh, I'm not unmuted. Marion, are you interested in telling still?
I'll pass, but I would like to make an announcement.
Oh, it's 8:30. We should have announcements.
So my announcement is about word readers. We just had it on Sunday. And so actually I would encourage you to go to the recording. So go to Storytelling Association of California website. And then the second paragraph on homepage says, go to our YouTube channel. And because we just had it a couple of days ago, we'll be the second one, because tomorrow you'll be on as the first. But go to the Word Weavers for the May 9th event, because Bobby Kincaid is on there first, and then I'm on there second. So she told about damsels, and I told about a Confederate spy who was a woman. So you can hear those on Delta Word Weavers YouTube channel. Coming up in 1 month on June 13th, second Sunday, 2 o'clock is Word Weavers. Ed Lewis is my featured teller. And last month, the theme was the women. So June is the men. We have July, no Word Weavers, off July, but in August on second Sunday, 2 o'clock, Bill Matnick will be the featured teller. He's a musician and storyteller. And I think the theme is going to be guys and gals because he wrote Heart of a Man. And it's a wonderful book. I recommend it. And it's men. They are sitting down and telling really some of their thoughts. It's a great book. So he's going to tell some things out of there. That's my announcements. And I would like to hear Linda's story.
Okay. I will tell my story. I will excuse anyone who wants to leave. I don't announce this till 9 p.m. We are announced till 8:30. So if you drop off, you don't even need to chat me because sometimes I forget to look at the chat. I'm really glad you all came. What I have is a very short story. I will just begin. Once was a king with a daughter who grew more beautiful with every year. Many men wanted to marry her. But the first two who came to ask were rain and fire. And rain went directly to the daughter and asked her. And she said yes. But fire went directly to her father. And her father said yes. And the next day he called for his daughter and he told her what he has done. And she said, "But father, I have already received a proposal from rain." I said, "Yes." And the father says, "Well, we have two promises and we can only keep one." After pondering, her father declared that there was going to be a contest. And he put out an announcement, and it said that the suitors for his daughter would be put to a test on the marriage day. And on that day, they were summoned. Fire was the first to arrive. There was not even any sign of rain. But fire moved along at a clip so fast that it was only to be explained by the velocity of the wind, which kept fire going faster and faster. It was a run and it had a destination, and obviously fire or rain or any other competitor needed to be the first to arrive. We've gotten to the point where it looks as though fire is definitely the first to arrive, but has not yet. But at least in the sky, his competitor, rain, has appeared slowly, but darkening, slowly, but getting wetter and wetter to where the sky is heavy with rain. The rain is heavy on flames, and fire has now been extinguished. And rain makes his way to the finish line without any competitor. And you should know that before this all happened, the daughter had decided to herself that no matter who won, she would not be able to give her heart to anyone but rain. And so there we have it. And from that day forth, rain and fire have always experienced enmity whenever they are together. The end. Oh.
We do have another announcement, Linda, if you want to make it about the
I would-
SAC
well,
genre.
Yeah,
tape.
genre. We have our own mixed bag gets to claim Jean Ellison this month. I'm so glad for genre telling Saks Wednesday, March 19, 7
Yes.
p.m. telling. Um,
People need to register. So go to the
Yes.
SAC website, left-hand menu, genre tales, pick the May 19th, and you just register. It's free.
Thank you, Marion. I see your
And
hand, Bobby.
I have tried to register about 10 times for that and it won't go through. I tried my credit card. I was going to give them a little donation. It just doesn't go through. Should I just show up that night? How am I going to get there?
It's impossible to just show up. Do you have Shag's email?
I'll talk to him.
If
Yes,
you have
I-
that, otherwise he'll make it happen.
Bobby, would
There's
you
some
like me
glitch.
to email? Bobby, would you like me to email you Shag's email?
I have it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Good. Good.
I don't want to miss Jean.
Oh, Bobby.
And Renu, will you be there representing one of the other swaps? I saw your name.
Yeah, probably. I think so, because I think South Sound Storytelling, I have no idea.
Oh, maybe
Linda.
it's not you. Maybe I got your name confused. I recognize more than Jean's name.
Rupa.
Oh, it's Rupa. I don't know Rupa like I know Renu.
Rupa lives in
Well,
the US.
join the party.
Yeah, come and watch.
This was really wonderful having all of you come tonight. I'm very pleased. Does anyone have an announcement of their own or comments or requests?
Loved your story, Linda.
Thank you, Renu. I don't have any other things to say, but that Beverly made it safe from the smell of smoke, oh my, is such good news. And that the content of what I heard tonight is so edifying about the attention people pay and the memories that they harbor and the need, the desire and ability to get it out. It's a wonderful thing. I have stories inside that haven't come out yet, and I thought I had committed myself to telling one tonight. I did not, but one of these days. And I'm so extremely happy John copied and told tonight, because sometimes I want John to tell and he doesn't. So,
Yay, John.
and Seema, I'm very glad to have our newest listener. And one day you'll be more than a listener, you'll be a teller. I'm sure of it.
Thank you, Linda, for keeping the ball rolling.
Yes.
You're welcome,
And
Jean. You're welcome.
Isn't it
all.
a treat that we can hear and see people from around the world and around the country? I mean, that's
Yes.
I do not take it for
shining
granted.
star of this COVID stuff, but I just really want to get back to having an audience to
Come June, maybe you could, if you come, I hope you do, you could perhaps have figured out some sort of opinion or a response to the concept of hybrid. In my other, like in high yoga classes, people are too used to the Zoom remoteness being close. And so hybrids seem to be being the answer, but I've been to one in-person yoga class and it worked. But it took 2 devices and more than 2 people to get anyway.
Yeah.
We
It's
shall see, huh?
the new normal keeps developing.
Well, I hope
Thank you,
I have.
Linda.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Mr.
Good night.
Shadows time.
Lovely to
Mr.
see
Shadows
you
Thank
time.
you. Linda, you can sign out the recording.
Oh,
Just
thank
tell
you.
them,
Thank you very much for letting me come. I appreciate it very much. When's your next date?
3rd Monday in June, so it will be on June 15. The Ides of, oh, that's 21. Okay, 20, that's 20. June 21 in 21. Wow.
And you'll send the,
I will send the thing, yeah.
I'm gonna
Is
put
that the first day of summer?
June 21st, I think is.
Wow.
That is, that's June 21st is when the meeting is. Yeah.
Oh
I
my
think you're
gosh.
right.
Jean, are you still there? You'd be doing one of your non-COVID solstice businesses. Oh, well. To June
She
21st,
gone?
friends, or when I next see you. Good night, good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Jessica. Thank you. Heard some wonderful stories today. Thank you.